Ready?
We're
Hello,
good.
everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Voyage Ask the Expert series. I am happy to join you tonight on this wonderful program. And we are committed to, we have our CEO, Ms. Darlene Blanco, who is committed to be here tonight, despite multiple competing priorities. I am Mario Lewis, the CFO of Voyage, and it is wonderful to be here. Uh, before we get started, I want to remind you, grow your business with Voyage, ignite your career with Voyage, start your voyage today. Tonight, you're receiving value-added content, so follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on LinkedIn. As a continuation from last week's program, we're going to talk about the magic of mentorship. We painted that scenario for you. Think about it. You have top-notch credentials, you've got great work experience and excellent references, which have helped you to get started with some of the most notable employers. And all of a sudden, you now with the firm of your dreams, and the results you're expecting are not translating. So because of that, we're going to focus on talk about mentorship. And last week we covered a number of topics, but today we're going to talk about mentorship through the different stages of your career. And let's talk about the early stages. And I want to start, Darlene. Mentorship is different at the different stages of your career. Can you talk about your experience in the early years? What were you looking for in mentorship? How did you go about finding mentors? And what were the things that was necessary for you to make use of that mentor-mentee relationship? Please.
Yes, thank you, Mario. And I'm really happy to be able to be on tonight because I love this session and especially the conversations around mentorship. And you're right, Mario. Mentorship happens throughout different phases of your career where you have different needs and different expectations that you're trying to kind of escalate or just trying to goals that you're trying to achieve. So early on in my career, I think I looked for sort of comfortable spaces, mentors that I know would, help me early on and that wouldn't get frustrated because maybe I needed to really understand things more thoroughly and I needed a little bit more explanation. So I think that seeking mentors early on in my career, I was looking for those that can be patient with me, that can help guide my learning. There was a lot of things I was a novice about. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy. It's not easy because, most people think, oh, if I'm seeking a mentor, what qualities am I looking for? But you have to go connect that individual and really feel like they can take that time, with you.
And I would think as a young, diverse professional, you're just trying to navigate the workplace. You're trying to find places where you belong and where you fit in. So what were some, especially around that, for me, that was an area where I needed people who could help me just navigate those interpersonal things. How did that factor into your mentorship journey in the early years?
Oh, I absolutely love that because there's so much to be said about the workforce environment and the culture at each organization. And when you are new in your career, you maybe are not, privy to understanding all the little nuances and, what is some of the corporate etiquette components that you need to be, cognizant of. And I think that there's a lot of learning there, even simple things, how to prepare well for meetings, how to, show up at work, what are the things that you need to be diligent about, that will really help make you stand out as an individual contributor and as someone who has leadership potential. So, learning that early on and understanding the culture and the environment of the organization, that's really key, especially for those that are getting started on their career journey.
I'll tell you, just being my Caribbean heritage, when I engage with people who are senior than me, I would call them Mr. So or Sir, and when I in my first corporate environment, some people took me aside. They say, "That's not how everybody's a colleague here. I know it's important to show respect, but you don't want to show it deference. So you want them to respect you as a professional, so you have to treat them on an even." So that was something just you take apart from my upbringing, it was something that I had to learn to how to adapt a little bit more to that corporate environment. So there are these little nuances that allows you to do that in an effective way. How did you think about, did you encounter anything of that nature where you had just, if you think about your cultural background or just the experiences you had and how that you may have had to modify those behaviors in order to make sure that people respected you in there or treated you a certain way in the environment?
It's interesting because when I first, transitioned into corporate, I felt really kind of lost. I really didn't see familiar faces. I really
Yeah.
didn't see too many, like individuals. First of all, I want to start with it's a male dominated industry. So there really isn't many women in these fields. And then when they are, they're in the supporting roles. I really didn't see much diversity, as much diversity as I do see today.
Hmm.
So one of the things for me was really difficult trying to find how my heritage would be weaved into what my work environment and culture would be. So if I'm being really honest, I think I just assimilated into what was corporate culture. So it
Hmm.
didn't really have, the depths of all of the different, diversity. That it was just a corporate culture that I assimilated into. And I parked a lot of my personality and a lot of, my cultural background. I parked a lot of that at home. I didn't really bring that to work with me.
Yeah.
Even, even the clothes that we wear. I mean,
Yep.
you're coming into your corporate environment. We were in business suits. It was just everything. I felt like every day I just transitioned into, what I was intended to be, which is just, a business person coming to work. We really didn't, I really didn't, embark too much on bringing, authenticity and culture and heritage. That really wasn't something that wasn't an area of focus up until they really started pushing diversity and inclusion and diversity markets, and then that's when I really became aware of it. And interesting, Mario, because then that's when all of a sudden you start saying, "Oh, wait a second, some of my friends are here." I just have to find them, seek them out, and it was a really wonderful experience. But I think just overall, the corporate culture in itself is just its own thing, and there's a whole language there. I mean, it's where I learned to drink coffee. Like it was part of the thing. I'm like every morning, people are walking around with their coffee cups. I'm like, okay, I guess I need a coffee cup.
Exactly. How do I fit into the culture? So let's close out the early career section. So what were the key things? Like name one or two things that your mentor was able to teach you that helps you navigate and that helped you get into the mid-career stage.
Yeah, my mentor, she was my first mentor. She was really great. She was direct. She taught me etiquette. She taught me how to navigate the ins and outs of the executive environment, when it's appropriate, when, what sort of behaviors are appropriate and what's not. And in terms of how you handle, just executives' time, they are very busy. There are lots of meetings. There are lots of things going on, and you need to be really thoughtful about when is the right opportunity to approach for these kinds of discussions. And when you're looking for those in power that are really going to be able to help you, I think you also need to be really thoughtful about what are the key things that you need out of the mentoring relationship, and that you want to be able to express to them your value and what you want to be moving forward with this. I think about that. I learned so much from those early mentor conversations, from what to wear, what to say, when is the right time, when to approach people, how do you like all of those things you don't learn from a textbook.
Yep. Great. So thank you. For those of you who are in the early stages of your career, I think Darlene summed it up quite nicely about the early career mentor helps you with the foundational aspects of transitioning into the workforce. And I think transitioning from the textbook into the early individual contributor roles. So now let's move into the next stage. So as you are in the middle of your career, you've already gained a little bit of experience. You've navigated the early parts of your career. You're starting to explore the early stages of management. See, mentorship at that stage can be very helpful as you think about different paths, skills, finding that role, the roles that where you want to go become senior in. So as you think about what your journey was in that mid-career space, Darlene, what were the things that your mentors helped you to accomplish to help you now think about the later stage? How was that? What did they do to help bridge you? And what were the things you learned?
So mid mentorship, I would say I'm thinking about this and I laugh because I wasn't ready at the time and I didn't understand, but they were teaching me what feedback meant and how to utilize that feedback for growth and development. And they were challenging me. And they were challenging me in ways that sometimes I didn't necessarily appreciate at the time. I was a little bit more sensitive, and some of the things you're not going to hear everything is great, right? If your mentor really cares about you, nothing is always going to be a great. You're not going to get score 100 on everything. Your mentor's there to really coach you and tell you sometimes things that you may necessarily not want to hear, or maybe that you're not ready to hear.
Yeah.
So I think that I had a lot of growing up to do, and I had a lot of kind of refining, and it just took that level of just being able to understand what it is to have feedback that you can trust, and what you need to do to help you develop, grow, and get to that next phase. If you want something in your career, it's probably going to mean you're going to have to work a little harder for it, and you're going to have to cultivate and continue to fine tune things. And without that feedback and without the ability to say, hey, I get it, I understand, I still need to work on this, it's a big deal, but it's an ego thing too. You're like
Great comment. So we're at the midpoint. So I want to remind everyone, if you enjoy the content you're receiving, remember to follow us on Facebook, like our YouTube channel, use the handle at Start Your Voyage, and also follow us on LinkedIn. Make sure you click the likes or subscribe buttons so you can hear more of this value-added content. So this space we're talking about, we're helping you to ignite your career with Voyage. So start your voyage today. I'll continue on. I agree. I'll continue on, Darlene. So what were the things, how did you, in order to obtain that feedback, which you said is, how did you engage with your mentor in order to make sure you were getting timely feedback? Because that's an important part of it, making sure you're soliciting and using their time valuably.
If you're having a mentor that is in a senior leadership role, you're going to need to really be thoughtful about calendaring the time you have with them, and maybe making sure that you're always bringing your A game. So what I learned is that the mentor really love the experience and they enjoy it, but they enjoy it most when the mentee is just really kind of assertive about, like, by the way, I've got to get this in front of you. I've done some great research. I'm trying this. I want you to know about it. Ignite them in a way, create that spark where they're like, oh, I really want to see my mentee. So I think that if you're going to keep that relationship and you're going to want them to really find that time for you, it's really on the mentee to just continue to bring their A game. Bring your A game all the time. I never wasted my mentor's time. Every time I knew I had, time scheduled with them, I was proactive about making sure the time was scheduled. I was also proactive about creating that agenda, what we're going to talk about, what are some of the things that I've accomplished since we last met. Here's what my to-do list and task list was. Here's how I, moved it on along. I think that when you're in that mentee role, you really want to, make the most out of the relationship. And you also want to make sure that you're allowing for your mentor to see, wow, she's on to something. She's actually really great at this. You know what? You will come to mind, and maybe you'll get connected. And I've landed great career opportunities just through that process.
I mean, you're right, because mentorship is a two-way street, and the mentor wants to see that their time is being used and utilized valuably, and that you're making. So I did that regularly. Just send emails or just follow-ups, and here's how I'm progressing based on the advice and the time that you've invested in me, so they can realize what the value of their contribution and the impact it was having. So now that we've talked a little bit about the mid-career approach, Darlene, you being a senior person and an experienced leader in your, how do you use mentorship now? Because I always say there's no stage where you don't need a mentor. And then how do you transition now, translating what you've learned into now developing even stronger mentee relationships? So you're both reaching forward, but you're also reaching behind to pull others with you. How do you think about that?
You know what? It's mentorship is so important, especially in team building. I've found that as an expert, when I'm looking at building strategic plans and essentially the way, business needs to operate, bringing leaders together and having them work in unison towards goals. I mean, when I think about all of that, I mean, that is mentorship, because what you need to do is mentor your team so that they can continue to nurture and mentor those, and that you have an organization that's constantly, they're growing together. I mean, we do this here on the Voyage team. We're always mentoring, growing, and learning from each other. And I think that that's one of the things that really puts a big value stamp on what mentorship looks like in your workplace as a senior leader. As a senior leader, you want to make sure that your directors, your managers, everybody on the team has that sort of mindset, so that they're always looking at helping to develop those that may need a little bit more support to help everyone grow. I mean, that's essentially the kind of culture that you really want to have in your organization. I know for me, that's important. I'm constantly looking, to see where are some of the areas that folks on my team can both serve as a mentor and also serve as a mentee. I think, Mario, I love that you talk about that, because I think that when you're at a senior level, you might seem to think like, oh, I don't need mentorship. Yeah, you do. We all need mentorship.
We all critically. It's funny because people don't think of peer mentorship as the critical part of mentor. So people who are successful in different fields. So it doesn't have to be a more senior person. It can be someone who is parallel in their career achievements or in a completely different space. Because at that point, you might be looking outside of your industry for the next innovative ideas that help you within your industry. So breakthrough comes from different spaces, and mentorship. And the funny thing about it, people think of mentorship can be a long-term relationship, but you could be mentored for a season, and that helps leapfrog you in your career and in the direction or in your goals. And also, when I think about it, is that your peer mentor, your senior, can provide you with information like industry trends, new skill developments, or even at the latest stage of your career, they can help you think about what to do in retirement if they've already retired. So it just, as you think about it, and this is an interesting question, but as you move into the next season of what you're looking to share, and I know you've got big things on the agenda, you've got amazing plans and that you're already beginning to achieve, and I can see the fruits of your labor as a CEO. What kind of mentor are you looking for next? What mentor would help you in your next stage of your voyage or your journey?
Wow, it's interesting because now at this point in my career, the thing I'm always thinking about is, how much more can I magnify my efforts of really being able to help others, to touch others. The mentorship that I look for now is really more along the lines of, guiding me to help me, reach more people, to do more good work in communities. When I think about the line of work that I'm in now as a workforce practitioner, it touches me in a different way. And I don't go to work every day. I'm just doing what I love. And, you know, the ability to change people's lives, have an impact on, you know, seeing their transition.
Yeah.
For me, that is so like it just has so much depth in it for me as a leader, and it makes me always look for mentorship that guides me in, hey, am I thinking about things right? Am I being as inclusive as possible? Am I thinking about all the different nuances? Have I thought through everything? You know, is there anything that's missing? Because I really want to, you know, try to do the best that I can. And, you know, you really just need that support sometimes. And I think it's tough because you're guiding others, you're leading others, and you just want to know that you need that pulse check. Hey, am I headed in the right direction?
Yeah. Wow. See, and that demonstrates the dynamic nature of mentorship. It comes in different direction. It comes in different time frames. It comes in different, but it really comes down to understanding what are your goals, what are the things you're, and finding that person who can help you achieve greatness, who can help maintain excellence, who can help you see around the corner where you're, because naturally when you're in the position of leadership, your eyes are straight in front of you and you're pulling the team with you. But sometimes that mentor can help you look around the corner so that you can navigate. Now you're, instead of just navigating your career, you're navigating an enterprise. So,
Right.
so Darlene, on the topic of mentorship, I want you to say, what are your closing words on how you guide our base of followers, of folks all over the country and who listen to us? What would you tell them is the biggest takeaway on how they should approach mentorship?
Don't be afraid of, you know, connecting with folks. I think that a lot of times we maybe don't realize, like, I think mentorship can be found in so many different circles, and it doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, in a work environment. I mean, I find mentors, and I'm not afraid to connect with people. And I think that's really, you know, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to, you know, say, hey, can you, do you have a few minutes? I would love to talk to you. I'd love to learn more about, you know, A, B, or C. I mean, you know, I think that that's the hardest part, is establishing that first line of connection, and having it really be an organic setup. I mean, because I think those are the best mentor relationships. So, you know, seek those mentors, but don't worry so much about where you're getting them from, because you never realize, like, just the strength of the diversity of the different backgrounds. Like you mentioned earlier, Mario, I'm thinking about, as I'm thinking about all my mentors, I'm like, they each are doing something completely different, but each and every one of them are impacting me in such a powerful way. So I think that you never know, you know, always be on the mentor lookout.
Awesome. Love that. Love that. And I think that's a fabulous way to end our program tonight. So there you have it, folks, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, we've helped you to grow your business with some of this value-added content on mentorship. We've helped you hopefully really think about your career in new and different ways, because you can use mentors in each of those venues. So I highly recommend that you start your Voyage today. So we'll end our program and just remind you, if you want to continue looking for value-added content on things that will help you push your career and help you move your Voyage forward, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our channel, and follow us. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.